5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Good afternoon and welcome to the show. This is What's the Buzz, and it is a happy Thursday to you. Coming to you live from Austin, Texas. I saw the sun today. It was beautiful. We may see it again here in a bit. This should be the last day of the coldness. The ice is melting and it is dropping. So be careful out there. I've just seen so many sheets and strings of ice just collapse. Thankfully, I haven't seen anybody get hit, but I would be surprised, if nobody has been hit by that, because it comes out of nowhere and it comes fast. But it's continuing to hydrate our planet, our earth, our land, our trees, our grass, and bring it out of this cold, hardened, frigid freeze as the sun returns today and tomorrow. And tomorrow is a high of, above 50. After that, above 60. Sunday is supposed to be 70s. So warming up real quick, and I'm sure everyone's going to want to get out and about. If you have ever been to Zilker Park after a couple days of cold and rain and clouds, it gets packed. So I probably won't be going there. But I'm sure lots of people will, and just being outside in general is going to be great. There's many more cars on the road today. So things are getting back to the full swing, and hopefully some more things open up so we can get some variation in food. I was going to get some food last night, but the only thing open was Whataburger. And I sat in line for almost an hour and realized I was going to be there for at least a couple hours, or definitely over an hour. And was like, I think I'd feel better not sitting in this line being starving, and instead just going to sleep. So that's what I did. And woke up good to go, ready to take on the day. So happy Thursday to you. Today is February 2nd, 2023. And today's show, our theme is all about numerology. Numerology. So I just want to say, full disclosure here, the themes and the topics and the news stories that we cover on this show, it isn't because I'm some expert on any of these things. It isn't because I know all about all of these things. It's because I think that these things are interesting to talk about and to come at from different perspectives, from different awarenesses, and from different knowledge points of it. So numerology is one of those things that has always interested me, but I've never necessarily sought it out. And I think I've read one book in the last couple of years for the first time on numerology, but it was more like an astrology type of thing, where it was like, how to calculate the numbers of your name and your life number and stuff like that, which is cool, and I found it interesting, but I didn't feel like it taught me what the deep layers of numerology can be. And so that's one of the things I would like to know more about. But I do know that I'm very intrigued by it, by the concepts, by the ideas, and that I believe in it to some extent of having some sort of role in our realities, especially when you consider, first of all, cycles, natural cycles that occur, whether it's every 11 years or 6,000 years or 24,000 years or 12,000 years or whatever, that unfold on our planet and our galaxy, or it's like the coding of our programs that our internet and websites run off of is all numbers. Everything is numbers, and code. So I know there's a lot more to that than I have fully uncovered so far. But I didn't call it numerology. I didn't even know that term, or necessarily like that there was anything like that. But I was raised around my dad, who I've heard other people say they've never known anyone who was more obsessed or more who talked more about numbers, that his favorite number was 22 or 2, and he talked about it all the time, the number 2, ooh, 22. Every time he saw it all the time, he pointed it out all the time. He'd always get so excited about seeing the number 2 or 22 or 222. And I remember this was probably, I don't know, I want to say like 06, 07, 08, probably 06. It was February 22nd, and we went to Fry's Electronics over on Palmer, which I think is shut down. It has been a shell of itself for years due to like Amazon and all that, but used to be the spot on a weekend, and it was always packed. They had so much cool stuff, and me and my dad used to always go there, and on like Sunday mornings and stuff. And so one morning we were there, and it was February 22nd, and back then, you know, they ended up finishing with like probably like 10 registers, but back then they had like 30 registers, and they had someone stand by the line that told you which register number to go to when one opened up, because it was constant. And we're standing in line, and we see that one of them lights up, and the guy sends the people in front of us to that one, and then my dad's watching register 22 the whole time, and he's like, oh, they're gonna finish, like the customer that was there. And then it looked to me like one of the other ones, like 13 or something, was about to be done, and then somehow at the last second 22 came on, and then the other one came on, and I was like, oh, he's gonna send us to the other one, and the guy says 22, and my dad like out loud is like, yes. And we go, and we check out, and he gets the receipt, and he's like, yes, 22. And it said register 22 on February 22nd. And that was just one of the many examples of that stuff like that happening. And then I felt like nobody really necessarily knew why he was I never got to ask him. I'd love to ask him, but I never even thought about there being a deeper meaning to it for him or anything at the time. But maybe there was, maybe there wasn't, maybe there was. And as life progressed me, he died in 2011. And as life progressed me to reach 2022, I started feeling like this was a year that he, felt was special. And it was a life-changing year for me. It was a very challenging year for me, but it was one of the most important years of my entire life. So I definitely have valued 22 for the rest of my life as well. And not just in his honor, but in his guidance. And then I learned recently that my best friend, who also passed away after high school, Connor, his number, which I didn't even know this till one of his friends told me recently, he was all about the number 7, which has also been a very special number to me in my own life. And me and Connor never talked about the number 7, so I didn't even know that. But that made a lot of sense to me, and that was cool to know that as well. And then for me, like, I remember I always liked 22 because, Dad liked 22 and all that. And then, when I was like, I want to have a favorite number, and I didn't want to pick a number that other people had, so I was always drawn to the number 33 and the number 3. And I always said as a kid that my favorite number was 33, which is really interesting as I've grown up and learned more about the number 3, about triangles, about ancient history, about the Trinity, and things like that, and about the age 33, the age 30, and stuff like that. It's become more and more real and more personal to me. So that's why here on February 2nd of the year 2023, I wanted to do this episode on numerology. So we will go ahead and get into our high 5 topics of the day, our local world entertainment news stories of the day, and then our jam of the day and our closing message, beginning with our local news of the day. And I thought it'd be nice to dig into a little history. So technically, this is sort of world-based as well, but I was able to, I looked up, so I found the newspaper archive of the Austin Daily Texan from February 2nd, today, 1995, which was the year I was born, but this was actually a few months before I was born. So who knew what was going on then? I didn't. Um, I suppose I guess I was existing in a womb. I was conceived, but definitely not a part of the world yet, or part of this outward outside yet. But I found it very interesting when I read the headlines on page 3 of the Daily Texan in 1995 on this day. And the World and Nation page reads the following headlines: Fed pushes interest rates higher. So immediately when I read that, I was like, wow, all I hear about are interest rates going up and blah, blah, blah now today. The second one was refugees returned to Cuba. And I was like, wow, yeah, immigration, Cuba. I just recently read a story about how some cruise ship brought on some, Cuban refugees that were in a boat, lost at sea, I guess. And people had mixed feelings about that. Then the third headline is U.S. accuses Russia, China of inhumanity. I was like, oh my gosh, all three of these could word for word be be the headlines, and probably are the headlines of the World and News section of the Austin American Statesman today, February 2nd, 2023. So I just couldn't help but feel like how much we as a collective and we as a population and citizens have been allowing ourselves to be a part of this like never ending cycle and loop of the same nonsense that just keeps getting told to us. And I initially tried to find some articles from February 2nd, 1988, but I guess that was too far back and the internet has already scrubbed everything before that. I couldn't even view this article fully without signing up to, or this paper, these newspapers, for even from 95 without signing up for an account, which I didn't want to do. So I was just reading through the little blurry thumbnail it gave me. But there's so many things from the 80s and late 80s and early 90s, I guess, that have been true all over again here in the 2020s, such as the Cold War stuff or whatever, the war in Russia and Ukraine and Gog and Magog, and 80s also brought us our first president that was actually from Hollywood in Reagan. And we did that all over again with Trump. Yeah, there's a lot of things that are just have been, the whole CDC and World Health Organization and Tony Fauci and all those people getting in place in the late 80s to be ready for this time. Yeah, they were. Yeah. Anyways, that kind of ushers us into our world news of the day, which not related to politics necessarily, but probably is. This day in 1887 was the first Groundhog Day in America. The first time we celebrated Groundhog Day was 1887 in Pennsylvania. The rodent predicting weather concept actually came from German immigrants, where they had been doing it for years before. And it's interesting to me that this article says that the Groundhog Hunting Club are what began the Groundhog Day in Pennsylvania as well. So you're telling me the people who were shooting and killing and hunting the groundhogs were like, oh, let's just save this one and name it Phil, and he can predict the weather. Like, what like has to happen for them to be like, yeah, we're the Groundhog Hunting Club, so I'm assuming they still hunted groundhogs, but we need this one. and to like stay alive and be our mascot. I don't know. But anyways, today, Puxatawny Phil saw his shadow when he came out or made the pilgrimage or whatever the heck it is. And so that means that there's 6 more weeks of winter. If he had not seen his shadow, that would mean that spring is coming in 2 weeks or something like that. So apparently various U.S. towns and Canadian towns do their own version of this rodent groundhog thing, predicting and calling the weather. I don't know how you feel about it, but regardless, this weather here in Austin is on its way out. I can barely see any ice anymore on these trees. It seems all melted, actually. And the weather's warming up, and we're looking ahead to a beautiful weekend here in town. So go ahead and get to our entertainment news of the day. And really, it's just, I thought it'd be interesting to share certain entertainers or celebrities who have a birthday today on 2/2, February 2nd. So today, Shakira turns 46, Graham Nash turns 81, bassist Ross Valerie of Journey turns 74, rapper Timo from Goody Mob turns 51, and the late Farrah Fawcett also had a birthday today. Yeah, so happy birthday to all of them, and sharing their birthday with the little 2/2 action. Today's jam of the day, since kind of this whole episode in terms of my awareness or my introduction to numerology, I guess you could say, is from my father. I wanted to share one of his songs. And also, you know, he's the inspiration behind my name, Beami. He's the inspiration behind my life, being alive, and how he carried himself, and how he treated others, and how strong he was, and balanced he remained throughout everything that he faced and was challenged with. And yeah, so today's jam of the day comes from Loping Buzzard, and the name of the song is Eyewitness. And all of these things I talked about today, and as well as our jam, is going to be linked down below in our description box. And Eyewitness, so my dad got to record one, like one real album that he released publicly to everything, on everything, in his life, and it was a couple years before he died, and I think he probably knew he didn't have much time left, and he worked so hard at it, spent so much time on it, and lots of it is something as simple as like putting water in a metal dog bowl and then like hitting it and spinning it and then recording the sounds that created, the woo, 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 and like then multiplying that times like 50 tracks and then panning it and then adding reverb and then mixing it and creating a whole experience out of that. So he has something like that. He has, on this album, the album's called The Buzzard Has Landed. I remember he recorded like in a dog at the Humane Society, all the dogs barking, and then he doubled and tripled and quadrupled that and created something out of it. I remember he took the faucet water dropping, the drop of water, and like made a song, I think it's called Parable, out of that. Or no, there's one, Fluid Chamber is the one with all the water dripping. And yeah, layers and layers of that. He recorded Storms. There's one called Atmosphere, FEAR, that there's one called Rainforest that is probably my favorite. It begins with a storm that he recorded. We witnessed in Georgetown at his mom's. So yeah, today's song, jam of the day, is Eyewitness, which he recorded a bunch of drums with, and I think didgeridoo that he was his main instrument that is in there, and then he basically impersonated a guy, like a country guy, giving an account of a UFO that he saw, like to a news show or something. And the first, I think one of the times it plays that track, it's backwards, and then the other time it's forwards. But you can't necessarily tell, which is It's just kind of how he delivered it. So if you want to check that out, that'll be linked down below. Eyewitness by Loping Buzzard. And then my closing message to you today is this: if something piques your interest at all, you like it sparks something in you. You're like, oh yeah, I've always found that kind of cool, but I don't really know much about it. Go seek it out. And when I say seek it out, I don't mean like go Google it, read the first couple headlines or articles even, and then be like, cool, I'll dig into this some other time, and then never return to it. Seek it out and see if it actually does spark that passion in you or that interest in you, not from the TV or the Google results, but dig a little, like find as many different angles and perspectives and teachers and t- conversations about it as you can, and you may discover that there's people who talk about it that talk about it on a very surface level and kind of general terms, which is fine and helpful, but then you may discover that this stuff actually is, there's a whole nother way to talk about it, there's a whole nother level to it. And an example of this for me was astrology. I always heard, oh, like, I'm a Taurus, I'm a Sag, and then it was like, oh, I'm Pisces rising, blah. I was like, what? And then it was like, the whole chart is kind of what matters, not just your sun sign. And then when I finally like, I've watched astrology stuff on YouTube and never really got anything out of it, like readings or whatever. And then when I discovered a astrologer named Pam Gregory in the UK, who just made it seem so much more like real and like planet based, and it wasn't like, she doesn't give personal readings. She doesn't tell you how you as a Taurus are going to feel about it. She talks about the collective and the impacts on the whole world and countries and governments and populations. And it just has resonated with me on a whole nother level and made it so much more tangible and real to me. And I've even said on the show before, when I discovered that the sun had cycles, and that the person who told me that knew about the 11-year cycles of the sun, and that was it. That was all that was as deep as they went. And when I discovered it, which is fine, it changed my life. When I discovered that the sun had 11-year cycles, it's called a solar cycle. Right now we're in solar cycle 25, and we're in the middle of that 11 years. It peaks in the middle, and so they're forecasting that by June 2024 we'll be at solar maximum before going back down to solar minimum, before starting a new solar cycle 26 in, what would that be? We started 25 in December 2019, January 2020. So 11 years after that, it's 2031, 2032-ish, which also apparently a lot of ancient prophecies and stuff predicted that's the start of the golden age. Other people say the golden age on Earth can start whenever we are ready for it. It can start sooner. I think we're just kind of, it's not a matter of it starting or ending. It's a process that we're all enjoying the ride within and around. But anyways, these things, I learned about science, I learned about weather, I learned about sunlight in terms of photosynthesis and feeding plants and stuff in school. I didn't learn about this stuff. I didn't learn about the stuff that literally affects our psyche, our consciousness. I didn't learn about, Jupiter in terms of the impacts and effects that it has on our emotions as a nature. And it's not just people talk about astrology in terms of how it affects us as humans, which is because we're human, but this stuff isn't. It became so much real to me also because I was seeing it in animals and birds and wild animals and in my domesticated dogs, my friends, in my and society, in trees. And yeah, like, and there's a buzzard up there in the sky right now that just flew over. I was just thinking this morning how for the first time in a long time. This cold weather and these clouds, I hadn't seen a buzzard for like a day or something like that. But I knew one was gonna come around today, and there it is. Hey, buddy. So yeah, that's my closing message to you. Like there's things out there that, whether it's something based, spirituality based, whether it's sports, whether it's, you know, a certain career path, or just an interest, entertainment, whatever, that you want to know more about, or you've always felt like there's more to it, like go check it out. And you never know how that might set you on a path forward, as what you discover, how you want to, you know, change your career, or how you want to carry yourself as an individual, or whatever. There's no one knows it all, but there's unlimited knowing to be received and to pursue, and experiences that help us grow. So yeah, just don't, I guess I'm saying, don't remain content, and, you know, be content, but don't remain stagnant in where we are, because we can always be better. No matter how good it is, no matter how bad it is, it will always get better. And we have a choice in that process and that action. So that's going to do it for today's show. Thank you for joining us here on today's episode, all about numerology of What's the Buzz. I want to thank Amber and Nova for joining me as well, my co-hosts, and getting set for a beautiful Friday. TGIF is upcoming. Have a wonderful afternoon and evening, and stay safe out there. Everyone's getting out and about again after being cooped up, but watch out for these fallen ices and these slippery roads, and go get some grub, go get some sunlight, and enjoy your Thursday. I am Beami. You can follow me at Beami Music. Beami.earth is my website. Lots of writings, some historical documents, some short stories, my lyrics, some music, all of that and more over on my website, beami.earth. I just had an interview drop with Voyage Austin magazine, which you can get from beami.earth as well. And enjoy the day. Thank you so much. Peace. Love and light. Good night.